Good afternoon for those of you listening from hopefully near and far. This is the Senate Committee on Government Operations meeting for Wednesday, January 22nd. We have three tasks, actually four, to perform today. Beth is with us, and we have the Vermont Arts Council coming in at 2. And we'll also talk with Bart Neal and Derek Morrison, the Chief of Commissioner of Public Safety, before we adjourn to the House for further discussion. Let's just leave it at that. So let's go around and introduce. I feel silly sometimes doing that because 4 of the 5 of us know Beth, 3 of you from last year and myself from years before that, but we do have a new senator, so we'll go around the room.
Senator Larry Hart, Orange County.
Allison Clarkson, Windsor County District. It's so good to see you. How we've grown together.
Brian Collmore representing the Rutland District.
Tanya Vihovsky, Chittenden Central.
Okay, yeah, but either way, yes, please join in.
I'm Jillian, I'm the committee assistant.
And hi, I'm Senator White from the Windsor County District. Thank you for coming back to us.
And I am Beth Fastige. I'm the Commissioner of the Department of Human Resources and one of Senator Vihovsky's constituents.
Oh, great.
I thought I remembered that was the case.
So what's new in DHR?
What is new in DHR? I believe that I've provided you with a few some information. One is just a 1-pager, kind of a reminder of what we do in DHR, and then also a couple of reports that we provided to you recently. So what is new in DHR? I think I'll just outline kind of who we are and what we do. So like in all organizations, we have 8,000 plus employees. And once you count the other branches, we're into the 10,000 range in temporary employees. So we are kind of like do a lot of back office stuff for state government. So we do everybody's payroll. We do maintain everybody's human resources information. So in our system, we have all of your confidential information, like social security numbers and things like that. So we maintain all that data on employees and their salaries. So the real important component of what we do is that back office component, which also includes reporting out on that data to various organizations and generally within state government. We have what you would consider traditional HR services. So those are HR business partners that the employees and appointing authorities deal with, from employee issues to onboarding to any questions you have. And then benefits and wellness. So we do all employee benefits for all three branches. And our wellness program as well is amazing. Just trying to keep employees healthy and make them healthier. And we have a very good program there. It's part of a lot of the funding from that actually comes within our contract with our healthcare provider, our healthcare administrator, but it's also a partnership with the VSEA as far as having that program. Oh, and the VTM are both labor partners. We do recruitment and talent acquisition. So within the executive branch, we use a platform called Success Factors for recruiting employees. Different than judiciary and ledge hire on people in different manners, but eventually all the data gets into that VTHR system. We manage employee compensation. We do classification and position management, which is somewhat unique to governmental organizations. Workforce development training. We have a statewide training center up at the Old Vermont College campus that we call CAPS, or Center for Achievement in Public Service. And so we provide basically management, supervisor, employee enrichment training. We have 8,000 online classes plus instructor-led training, both online and in person. And we have our labor relations group, and they negotiate contracts with our union partners, as well as manage through the grievance process and all other anything involved in the collective bargaining agreements or a result of the collective bargaining agreements. They work through those processes with, with agencies and departments across the state, as well as our HR business partners. We have our legal division. Also part of that is employee investigation. So we investigate allegations of employee misconduct. And as I mentioned, we do payroll and human resources information systems and reporting out on that data. Our operating budget last year was 17.4 million, and our team administers a payroll of about $1.2 billion annually and administers benefits of about $390 million. Our team's 106 employees, primarily classified. We have 6 exempt employees, which include exempt from the classified service, which means that we are appointed, and all attorneys throughout state government are exempt employees too. So I have 3 attorneys, as well as the commissioner, deputy commissioner, Nikki Fuller is my deputy commissioner, and then Catherine Russell is our executive staff assistant, and we're all exempt employees, and the ones are classified employees. Our employees are, well, they're classified employees. They are not eligible to be members of any of the unions. They're considered confidential employees. And primarily that's because we're the ones that are bargaining those agreements. But primarily, vast majority of state employees are classified, and then a subset of those are members, or at least in positions that are able to be under collective bargaining agreements. And our goal is to partner with agencies and departments to create and retain an engaged, motivated, and inclusive workforce. Our big projects that we're working on, the paid family and medical leave insurance. That's a program that we launched the summer of 2023 for state employees. So all state employees have paid family medical leave insurance, which is 6 weeks at 60% of their pay, as an additional enhanced benefit, in addition to their regular leave programs, which includes annual leave, personal leave, and sick leave. And then in July of 2022, last summer, we launched that program statewide for businesses and organizations. So now there is a family leave program that businesses can buy into through the Hartford. And then next summer, we'll launch that program for individuals. So if your business does not offer that to you, then you could buy that on the individual market if you choose to. So we're pretty excited about that. That's been a multi-year project. So really happy to get that off the ground and have, yes.
So state employees are now, that's open, and now we're moving ahead. I can't remember for individual, because we were opening it. The plan was to voluntarily open it up, that the individuals all over the state could participate as well. Who is administering the individuals across the state?
So that will be also administered by the Hartford.
Okay, so, and how do we let our constituents know when that's available and how they enroll?
So that will be available beginning July 2025. So there will be.
So this July.
This
right?
July, there will be a marketing campaign. When we rolled out the business, we started the marketing campaign actually quite early into the fall of 2023. Just with informational sessions through employer groups and chambers to get employers ready. There actually was an advertising campaign. They had wraps around buses and stuff like that. So I haven't seen what the campaign is going to be yet for the individual market, but we will have a public awareness campaign, including press releases as well. But it's not. So we'll let you know.
Right,
well.
and because I think our promoting it would be helpful in our various ways that we communicate, and we will have a better sense of the cost for individuals.
Right. And that will be for employers who have not, wouldn't have to be self-employed. If your employer is not offering that as a benefit, then you could go buy it on then the individual will be able to buy it on the individual market.
Thank you. I have 2 questions. So what is the uptake then? So it's voluntary for state employees, yes?
No.
So every state employee gets it,
Yes.
but it's voluntary for businesses and soon to be individuals.
Right.
What is the uptake then?
Just like any other insurance program, it's not a mandatory insurance product. It's not like you drive a car and have to get car insurance. It's if you would want to. So I think that the Hartford is very pleased with the uptake. And I didn't bring any numbers with me today, but I can provide those numbers too as well. But it's a new product and it's the first of its kind in Vermont. So it's something that we're pretty excited about and very proud of. And yeah, and so far it's going quite well.
Yeah, no, I'd love to see those numbers. And I am, like Senator Clarkson, sort of curious what the cost breakdown is. So it sounds like the cost for businesses and individuals is not the same as the cost for state employees. It's not just a universal, this is what it costs per person.
It is not. One of the things about this program is that it's customizable. There's different options that employers can buy. So the state offers 60% salary coverage, but an employer could choose to do 70% coverage. So they could increase that coverage. And also an employer also could, we do 6 weeks, but employer could choose to do longer than that. So what we have for state employees is kind of the base offering. That's the minimum. And that's what will be in the individual market, but businesses have the opportunity to kind of customize that
Right.
for their own employee workforce. So the pricing depends on, and it's also based because what the employee, it's based on salary. So if you had a higher paid workforce, you were more likely paying more per person because what the employees would get back would be more. So there's some kind of high end and low end, but it's not just all one price. It will be most like the individual market will be will be something that will be probably more easily understandable once that comes out.
And that is not customizable. The individual market will be what the state employees get.
Yes.
Okay. Awesome.
So, recently, and I don't know for how long, and because you represent all three branches, folks in the legislature can take out dental insurance, as I remember. That wasn't always true. I know Mike Ferrant, when he was still here, it was probably like 3-4 years ago that we at least could offer or could go on to it. Do you have any idea how many did out of the 180 that are here? I wanted to sort of, but I wasn't.
Yeah.
Because I don't have
I did
any
for a
other
year.
way to insure myself.
I have Harold,
Oh,
who's
okay.
the director of operations,
Sure.
and Clark
Hi, Harold.
Collins, who is our deputy director of benefits and wellness. And I don't know if any of them know off of the top of their head. It's not, I can tell you it's probably not a large number, but
Yeah.
I don't know if either of them
I don't mean to
have
put
it,
anybody
they
on the
can pop
spot.
on, but
But we'd love to know.
Yeah, just
but
curious.
I'll just write
whether
that
People
down.
took advantage of it.
What he might be looking, or be able to pop in. there.
Unmuted.
This is Harold Schwartz. My recollection isn't entirely clear, but I think it was a very small number because you had to pay you had to pay yourself 100% of the premium. But I just don't remember exactly how many.
Yeah. Well, for those of us, I don't necessarily not look forward to seeing my dentist because they're really nice people, but I've taken advantage of being able to kind of fend for myself. But I was interested in that. It seems it's another benefit that I don't think enough of us take advantage of.
And I don't think they reminded us this year when they sent out our
Mike,
compensation thing.
yeah, I remember getting an email.
Did they remind us we could?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. The other question I had, Beth, and thank you for coming in, and it's good to see, well, I guess we can't see Harold and Tom Clark, but it's good to hear you.
I can envision Tom's glasses.
What's the intersection between you and the retired state employees? Is there an intersection there? We had some of those folks in earlier in the
Yes.
session.
So there's a few things how we work with the retired state employees. They are on our health insurance plan. So when they retire, if they're eligible, they can retain the state health insurance. So our plan has about 25,000 members and that means family, the employees, the family members, plus retirees and their family members. So I think about a third of those are retirees. And then once they're on the exact same plan until they turn 65 or until they're Medicare eligible. which is generally 65. And then they, switch to Medicare as their primary with a supplement, with our plan as kind of a supplemental wraparound.
And they, when you negotiate that with the VSEA, they're automatically
Right,
getting the same.
they're on the same plan as the SCA, the regular employee plan. And then what happens when they retire, we match that plan as closely as we can. There's a few things with Medicare that a few things that are a little bit different, but we design the plan to be as close as we can to the state employee plan. So they don't, so it's pretty seamless when they switch over.
Any other questions, committee? Yes.
Yeah, I have a couple of other questions that are not related to retired state workers or paid family medical leave. One is just an update from last year around the vacancies. I know we talked a lot about the vacancies, and I'm just wondering if there's an update about where things are at now.
Particularly with corrections.
I mean, I'm curious about generally, but
Right.
I know DCF is in a tough spot too.
So I'm going to give you
Oh, right.
1 point of data, and then we do have a vacancy dashboard that is real time, which I didn't bring my laptop, so I don't have a link to it.
That's okay.
But
You can pull it up.
if you want to look at the workforce report, if you guys want to pull that up, there should be a link.
Did we get a hard copy? Could we request a hard copy?
This is the
for our
Senate
committee room?
government operations hard copy, and I will pass it
Thank
away.
you. This is a great document, Larry. Gives you, it's a wonderful read. It gives you
So-
all sorts of interesting information about our workforce.
Page,
I'm not reacting to you.
let's see. If we had a vacancy, historical from the absence, I'm just trying to find a vacancy. I'm not quite as great as finding it in the. I've got turnover highlighted. Vacancies.
This was a big conversation though.
That's fine.
They were around 11%, down to around 11% vacancies right now, but I would have to look at that. And I didn't have, Doug
Page
Pine on there.
28,
He's
29.
what?
Page 28.
Page 28, 29, thank you. And we
Oh,
have,
that's a big issue as we look at the budget next week,
yeah, yes.
because I think there's lots that's banked on vacancies.
So we have vacancy rate by department by fiscal year. If you look at page 28 and 29. Overall, let's see, do we have it overall too? Yeah, overall, it's, don't know where that is on one page, but it is somewhere in here. But
It's at the bottom, 11.3.
11.3.
I know.
I know. Wow. Okay.
What's a healthy vacancy rate?
So prior to the pandemic, we were around, in the 6 to 7% vacancy rate. And it jumped up to, up towards like 13 to 15%, like 13+%, 15%. And in some jobs, you can see if you look at the tables, where they have a higher vacancy rate. And these definitely are a point in time. So this is the end of 24 fiscal year, which was the end of June last year. And it can vary. The corrections, typically, they were actually down to 11%, where in 2023, they were at 20.
Oh my gosh, that's terrific.
So in that corrections, they definitely would fluctuate based on when the academies are. So they have the academy, they bring in people, and then they do have turnover. Obviously those are very difficult jobs. But so definitely the vacancy rate has been improving in those areas. Currently, I'm not sure exactly what it is, but again, I will send you the link to the dashboard.
Yeah, that's why I'm trying to find the
me too.
dashboard again.
And yeah.
No, is it on your website?
There's like this
Oh.
new data portal thing.
That's
I think
what
is
I'm
where
looking
I'm trying to-
I'm not sure if you can get to it from that way. I think I need to send you guys the link.
Okay.
Because I would be that fast, Larry, if I had the dashboard right in front of me. That is a
The
great
dashboard
tool.
is great. It's been a great tool. It's something that we created a couple of years ago now, and it gives the vacancy rate by department. It shows the job openings. It shows
In real time?
in real time. Yeah, well, real time as we get updated some parts are updated every 2 weeks and some are updated more daily. So it is pretty real time. And I look at it, I use it all the time just from our vacancies. We had a vacancy recently, Well, we had someone that announced they were retiring and I was like, okay, great, they posted that job already. So, I mean, I said, I approved it to be posted, but I wasn't sure that it was posted. So, you know, he was like, okay, great. And it was easy for me. I didn't have to ask anybody. I could just go right to the dashboard and look that up. So,
But
If I might interject, this is Harold Schwartz. I was able to get to that site and the overall vacancy rate is 10.4% as of the latest data. And from what I'm reading, unless I'm incorrect, the Department of Corrections is 12.3%.
What about the Department of Mental Health and DCF?
Hold on a second, it's going to take me a while.
Mental health is 36%.
I saw that that's what it was at that point in time, but I'm curious if it's changed. Because I also saw that 36% and went, oh.
But 12% in corrections, while you look that up, Harold, that's a big improvement.
I can say though that in mental health, I certainly can report some success that they've had recently, recruiting nurses. So they've had some success. I mean, it's one at a time, but they've had some success through a lot of hard work from my team as well as the Department of Mental Health on nurse recruitment. So that's been clear. I think that everyone would always want it to be more and not to be using any travelers, but allowing those, filling some of those vacancies have been great. So.
I'm glad to hear that there's an overall improvement and I can certainly wait until we've got more specific data. I have one other question and it's a little bit of a nitty gritty in the weeds question, but I asked someone else earlier and like, you should ask that one. And I was like, oh, great, you're my lady later. And that is about the position pool and how many people are in or how many positions are in the position pool and how those get assigned. I was just trying to understand that. And someone said, you would be a great person to ask.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing. So there's the position pool is somewhat hypothetical. It's in the sense that the Secretary of Administration has the ability to transfer positions within state government. And when there are vacancies and there are a certain amount of time with vacancies, we'll put them into the pool. So we'll take that vacancy from the department and then put it in a centralized area.
Is that like sort of 6 months? Is there a standard amount of time?
The standard is 6 months, but if, for example, something's an active recruitment, even though it's not filled, we're not going to take someone's position just because the job market isn't allowing that position to be filled. It's budgeted, they're trying. So we typically, if there's active recruitment there, we won't take that position into the pool. And those positions that once they get there are available to be reassigned. So the way it's been run for the past several years is there's actually a position pool committee. And I'm a member of the committee, along with a representative from the Secretary of Administration's office and Department of Finance. And a department could submit a request to the position pool for a new position.
And you can deliberate it.
And we could liberate, correct. There are 6 positions in the pool.
Okay.
So, which means that even though we still have that 10 point something % vacancy rate, I think that's what Harold says.
10.4.
Okay. There's a lot of active recruitment happening out there. Yeah. One of the things associated with that, just turning it over to pages 36 and 37, you've got the turnover rate by fiscal year and then the turnover rate, a historical view. And at the height of the pandemic, the turnover rate was a record high of 15.3%. And we're back down now to about 11.5%. A lot of those are still voluntary turnovers, more than in the past. And the 11+% is really, it's kind of new. Traditionally, it was more around, I have a table that goes by year, but historical views between like 1998 and 2005, it was 1998 was actually 6.9%. And then kind of a decade high in 2005 of 10.6. It dropped down a little bit below 8, but it's really been in that 10%, 9%, 8% range I would say, since the 2004. That vacancy.
And what, sorry, what is it currently, the turnover rate?
The turnover rate, oh, sorry, I said vacancy, is 11.5%. That way the turnover rate at the end of the fiscal year.
And our vacancy rate is 10.4.
Yeah. So we're filling them, we're able to fill, but we're also seeing, more in the past. It used to be that people would stay longer and stay until retirement. Now we have it actually by years of service. I believe there's a table by years of service. But people, the first year, they're much more apt to leave state government than they would be if they were here for 5 years, and then again for 10 years. And even the first week, they're more apt to leave than within the first month. So the longer you can keep them, the longer they're more apt to stay.
And the incentives for staying longer,
Well,
we have pension, there's pension buildup.
right. So if you're here for 5 years, then you're vested in the pension plan. So that's a good reason. Once you've been here for 5 years, I would say, I don't know if it's really more of an incentive to say, but what you put in a kind of the state match portion of that goes in. And eventually, if you stay with state government and work here until you're retirement eligible, even before you're, before you're in your 60s, you could start drawing on that pension as well. So the pension is
But
definitely.
are there other things that, other than the pension, which you're vested in after 5 years, do we honor people at 10-year, 15, 20? Do we have a ceremony in state government where the governor honors and thanks people who've been in service for?
We have, that would
I think that would
vary
be
by
nice.
department. So in our department, we have service pins, and we
Yeah,
announce that on their anniversaries. It's not like, there's nothing statewide, but I think a lot of departments do recognize that years of service. And I think employees are pretty proud of longevity of
Yeah.
service. And one thing, we are moving slowly ahead with is, and some folks will remember, we didn't talk about it a lot in the past couple of years, but our classification compensation system, our classification system is very outdated. And as well as our compensation system. So but that compensation system does encourage longevity because it's a step system. And there's typically, for most employees, 15 steps to get to top pay, but actually takes about 25 years on the regular progression to get to top pay. So if you're at top pay, it's an incentive to say, but if you're lower in that range, it almost might be a disincentive, because if you feel like you're fully capable and trained in your job, yet you're not making nearly as much as the person that's been there for 20 years, that can be a disincentive for employee that doesn't have that same amount of service. So there's kind of pros and cons to that type of pay chart, especially in this job market where people are more apt to change jobs. Looking at compensation and at that lower end is something that we've been looking at a lot.
I would also
And
add
you
that,
Tom would like that anything,
Like Harold May, I heard him chime in.
yeah, I was just going to interject that for classified employees, generally, in the first 5 years, you get a pay increase every year in addition to the.
Harold, can you hold on a second? I can't hear you.
Hold on a second, Harold.
Okay.
You okay, Allison?
It once a day situation.
sorry, it just went down the wrong way, whatever.
yeah.
Can you hear me now?
They're not quite yet. Wait, just another few seconds, I think.
Okay,
Okay, go ahead.
thank you.
Testing 1, 2, 3. Can you hear me? Now,
Go ahead, Harold.
I'm talking.
Oh, that, was it Starlink, Harold, you just got?
I have no idea. Can you hear me?
All right, try again.
Okay, forget it.
All right. But I think that what he was saying was related to the pay chart. That we have 15 steps in our pay chart. The first 5 years, until you're on step 6, you get a raise every year. automatically. And then in the next, till you're about, and then the next, I'm gonna say 5, you get a raise, a step raise every 2 years. And in those last 5 years or 4.5 years, you get a step raise every 3 years. So at first, it is designed to have the newer employees move their wages up more than in the end.
Yeah.
But it's still, I mean, to my liking, I think that it's too far spread out with the job market as we are today. And what employees are expecting as far as compensation. And we've done some things to address that. For example, last time around, the corrections bargaining unit
Right.
has a new pay chart. So they have 15 steps, but they step every year. So that's kind of an incentive, and it's a different pay chart. So it's a little bit more, the dollar amounts on those are a little bit more as well.
Difficult job for sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Senator Vygotsky.
Yeah, I just have a clarifying question. So, even, and if I'm wrong, please tell me, but if someone doesn't have a step increase, they would still get a cost of living adjustment. Yes.
That is.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So if, for example, the average value of a step is 1.9%. However, that's on average what we budget for all those steps. But so for the people, but usually a step is like between 3 and 4%. So when you're kind of moving up along those steps, you definitely get a bigger raise than will be your typical cost of living raise, or what we call is that across the board increase.
We've talked a little bit about vacancy rates and turnover. Are we in line with most other states in your way of viewing that, or are we kind of an outlier in any way, or?
I think what I hear from other states is they have challenges in all the same types of jobs, all the 24/7 jobs, anything in law enforcement, anything nursing, corrections, those all struggling in all of those areas. And in fact, when I go to national conferences and hear what's happening in other states, I always kind of think, oh, I'm glad I'm in Vermont. So they really are national issues as well as regional issues here. I think our unemployment rate is lower than a lot of people's, but also our wages, we have kind of a bet. Well, I've seen over the past 8 years, a lot of states that had the really low wages have really done some corrections there and have done a lot with their compensation, with us, like in the Northeast, and with when you're in a environment where there's collective bargaining, typically you do have higher wages in the area than when you don't. And even positions that wouldn't be collectively bargained for kind of follow that. So we didn't have that issue with kind of the low wages that we had until, I would say, that trying to get people to actually want to come work in state government. We didn't have that issue until the pandemic, and now it's just overall demographic issue.
Senator Clarkson.
Well, I'd just like to follow up on that, because our wages in Vermont generally tend to be lower than in all sectors compared to the states around us and Quebec. So I am curious about that. And I, having just overseen the Special Oversight Committee on Workforce Expansion and Development, where we tried to hire a national expert on workforce development, and we could not offer them enough. Right. We had great people, anyway, our pay, we underpay in a lot of areas. So I'm not sure we're actually paying that well, particularly for the jobs that aren't market for.
I think for state government jobs, we're doing okay. I think that we have a long way to go, and our structure is not great. And then you look at, the Northeast, and the closer you get to the more urban areas, the wages are definitely higher. And it used to be because the cost of living is so much higher, but as we know, housing is super expensive. Yeah, it's very high. So but if you asked, I would say all those other states are they're experiencing those same issues as well.
Committee, any other questions?
I have one other question.
Sure.
And it was about attorneys. So attorneys are not bargaining with the exception of state's attorneys are state employees, right?
States, attorneys and sheriffs are they're county employees by definition. By actually,
Okay.
by, court ruling.
Right, I was gonna say.
By court ruling, and they do the attorneys, deputy state's attorneys do have collective bargaining and they are represented by the Vermont State Employees Association, but attorneys, like staff attorneys within the executive branch or assistant attorney generals, the AG's office do not have collective bargaining rights for statute.
You know, I just kind of understand the distinction, but
Yes,
because there's so many tricky little distinctions.
there's a lot. Yeah,
Thank you.
sure.
Just looking at your report here, it said, State
Yeah.
of Vermont and Vermont Employees Association.
Yeah.
It says, 2024, the average salary adjustment was 3.9%. For Vermont State of Vermont and Vermont Troopers Association, it's 5.6%.
Yeah.
So that's
So, I can just look at that chart.
What page is that?
53.
53. So the Vermont Troopers Association bargains separately from the Vermont State Employees Association. So the total, if you're looking at those columns, so first the total average salary adjustment,
Mhm.
and then we see the estimated value of the steps,
Staff, yeah.
and then the across the board increase, which is what you would think of as like the cost of living increase.
Yeah.
So if you look at the average salary adjustment for troopers, their across the board increase in 2024 was 3%. And for Vermont State Employees Association, it was 2%. So the troopers did get, so in the last bargaining cycle, so this is the one, this is not this year or next year. This year, actually, it was actually the highest that the raises that employees were got this summer was 4.9%. Was it 4.9%? And then next
Wish I could talk.
4.5%, right, Harold?
Yeah, 4.5 plus 1.9 for steps.
That's the most recent. in-
That was
calendar
VSEA or troopers?
That was in
That's-
2025, it was
That's
both.
that's for VSEA. For troopers, it was 4.5, but their steps are higher. Their step percentage is higher. That's 2.6.
So if you look at in those columns in the report, course report, the estimated value of steps for troopers is 2.6%, where the estimated value of steps for other employees, not other employees, is 1.9%. That's because of that. Troopers also step every year, so they're going to get to the top of the pay grade higher, which is why their average value of steps is more. Which is why the average salary adjustment for troopers was 5.6%, and then the rest of most of the rest of the employees, it was 3.9%.
But then
So
they
that's
have
the
to
difference.
retire, right? They have to retire at 55.
7. You changed it.
Oh, that's right, we changed it to 57. No.
Yeah, so they have a minimum retirement age at 57. So the most recent bargaining cycle, so the across the board increase this year was 4.5% for all of the unions, except different for the corrections bargaining unit of the Employees Association, because it was kind of baked into their new pay chart, but they got a new pay chart, which was different. But their certainly value was probably more than 4.5%.
That needed correction.
So anyway, it's, and you can see the Troopers Association starting kind of running different, but this is a very good, kind of historical, kind of bargaining cycle. And that 4.5% that, employees got this summer was, historically very high in, any time in the past couple of decades. So the last time we saw something that high was, 2002.
Any other questions, committee?
Right, thank you, Beth.
Beth, we appreciate it, and Harold and Tom and Claire.
All right.
appreciate your time
Well,
as
hope to see you in person next time.
Yes, I just wanted to say something real fast, only because just to close the conversation from earlier, there are currently 25 legislators that are enrolled in the dental.
Oh,
Oh, great.
thank you, Clark.
You're
That's-
welcome.
That's terrific.
Not an overwhelming number, but
Hey,
more than I thought, actually.
So that's good. And it sort of goes to show with our ledge pay, proposal, that not everybody takes everything up. Everybody has different needs.
yes.
Yeah.
So-
Fund needs too. They
And
pay
needs.
100% of
Right.
the
And that's all they're gonna get per month. Percentage.
premium. There may be people that can't afford it.
This report is my office report.
Well, we
We got it.
probably get a link,
Yeah.
link.
Just interesting, I'm just looking at them.
This is Jillian, this is on our website, right, under reports.
Yes.
Okay.
And that you can find, this you can find.
Yeah,
from the
but-
HR website.
Portal link.
But we would-
I had fun with that thing.
I'll
We
send it
would
to you.
love a link to the,
I'll send it to you, absolutely.
because it really ought to be available just on your website.
Yeah, it's just a different publishing way because it's through, it's not, because it's a dashboard, it's just different. You don't, I don't
Because you don't.
necessarily the technology reason, but it's not part of our, it's more, as I think it's through Power BI. So you just use a link.
Yes, sir.
I have one last question for you, which is, do you have any asks for this year? Is there nothing that we need to do for you this year?
Oh,
Other than the pay act?
so Pay Act, this is not a Pay Act
The
year.
next year's Pay Act.
So Pay Act is what funds the collective bargaining agreements, and we only do that every 2 years. So next year, we will be in here in association with the troopers as well as the State Employees Association. Hopefully, we will be here and being able to support a new collective bargaining agreement. Bargaining starts in this fall, late summer, early fall. TBD on the budget, once the budget's announced. So TBD if we have any asks.
Yeah, and that whole interplay of the budget and how the budget balances itself or not on the vacancy savings is always of interest. It may need further
Yeah,
explanation and understanding in this committee's part.
right. And the vacancy savings are kind of based on the historical rates of vacancies in those departments. So if, I like those mental health positions, I don't know that all of those are funded, or the trooper positions, I don't know if all those vacancies are funded or not
Right.
fully funded, because they may have, there's gonna be a certain number of vacancy savings they have to meet, but we have a vacancy savings target and it just kind of will runs. At this point, when we have turnover, I'm trying to fill our jobs as quickly as possible, but in this market, sometimes we can fill them rather quickly, and then sometimes it's more challenging depending on the job and the time of year.
So that'd be helpful.
I have a question, and I actually don't even know if it is DHR that I should be asking. So if it's not, by all means, tell me to ask someone else. But I recently remember reading a headline around really lengthy investigations for employees out on administrative leave.
Mhm.
Is that a DHR issue? And
It's
if so, like, what's going on?
yes, and it's a executive branch
Okay.
issue. DHR is generally heavily involved in those
Mhm.
because our employees within DHR do the misconduct investigations, but there's actually a whole process associated with those. We're involved, but it also involves the departments where the employees work.
So not as simple. I'm just, I think I might be.
We could actually talk about the process if you had time, but I see that my friends from the Arts Council are here. But we can come back and talk about that there, but Tom is on there, happy to talk about that. It's under his bailiwick, so. Yeah.
Right.
No, it would be great to have you back to sort of dig into that a little bit more,
Sure,
what that
yeah.
process is and where the bottlenecks are, because I
Yeah.
imagine it's not good for anyone for them
Right.
to be taking a year.
Yeah, and I would say it's not so much bottlenecks, it's just really, a lot of it is really due process and making sure that, we don't have, between statute as well as court agreements and collective bargaining agreements. If someone is not able to be in the workplace while under investigation, we don't have the luxury as an employer of not paying them, right? Because they have to be, we can't.
Of course, and I'm certainly not suggesting that.
Well, no, and I think that's when people see those numbers, I mean, it's kind of disconcerting sometimes for people to see that, I don't think anybody or any taxpayer really likes that someone is being paid and not to work, because it's not productive. And that's why it's important to us to try to have that process as efficient as possible and have those decisions made as quickly as possible for both the employer as well as the employee, right?
Yeah, because I mean, the monetary amount was certainly jarring, but also just like the length of time where it seemed long. And so I'm just curious to know more about how it works and if there are ways to not limit due process. I certainly don't want to do that, but just look at it and understand it.
Right, we're happy to come back and talk about that.
Well, thank you for your time
All right.
today and your work.
All right, see you.
So we're going to
Thank
move
you, Beth.
next to two members of the Vermont Arts Council. And then we'll have a break before our dispatching testimony. So please join us at the table. You both can. Just drag a chair up.
Do you want to? Sure, pull the chair. We can be two of us.
Thanks, Beth. And we'll go around the table again quickly to make it productive if we could. Blair?
Senator Larry Hart, Orange County.
Oh, me, Allison Clarkson, Winter County District, and former Arts Council board member, and an enthusiastic supporter of creative economy, which we're going to touch on.
Brian Collmore, representing the Rutland District.
I'm Jillian, I'm the committee assistant.
Central District.
And I'm Sandra White, and I'm from the Windsor County District.
And you are?
I'm Susan Evans McClure. I'm the executive director of the Vermont Arts Council. I'm Amy Cunningham. I'm the deputy director of the Vermont Arts Council.
Welcome. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you so much for having us today. This is a great opportunity for us to say a little more about the Arts Council and what we do and talk about how to fill up these walls
Yeah.
in a way that will be fulfilling for everyone.
Yeah,
So some of you may already know this, but we'll just say the overview that the Vermont Arts Council is the state's art agency. Every state and territory in the country has an arts agency. And our focus really is on building a state where artists thrive, where creativity is at the heart of our communities, and where everyone has access to the arts in their lives and education. So we receive funding from the federal funding from the National Endowment for the Arts, and then matching funds are required from our NEA money from the state of Vermont. And we're able to do a bit of private fundraising as well. We are the only state arts agency in the country that operates as an independent nonprofit. Which makes us a little bit unique in a different way.
And just on that, we have to get the state appropriation because the feds only will match what the state appropriates. Is that
That's
right?
right, exactly. So we got our amount. The NEA gets their amount based on what's in the federal budget. They split it up between all of the arts agencies. There's 50 states, 6 territories. And then we are told what that amount is, and then we have to have that match dollar for dollar with state funding. Otherwise, we do not receive that money. So thank you for I know many of you have supported us over the years to get that funding. And it's really important for not just the workings of our organization, but really for Vermont overall to have access to those federal funds is really crucial.
Leads us to the economy.
Yes. So I'll just say that a little bit of the Arts Council work, we really focus on grant making, which is probably what you all know us the most for. We are supporting artists, arts organizations, educators, and communities, and some municipalities with direct funding to support them to create new work, do community development programs, help kids access arts education in their schools. And we also do a lot of convening and learning opportunities for artists. We know that artists and organizations need to be in a network with each other and be supported and be able to grow. We also really focus on increasing the visibility of the importance of the arts, not only in our lives, but also in our state's economy. So that was a good tee up, Senator Clarkson. Thank you. The arts and culture are actually create $1.2 billion a year of Vermont's overall economy. It's 3% of the state's well, the GSP, the gross state product, but 3% of the state's GSP is from the arts and culture. And that's everything from, a potter who's selling things at their pottery studio at their house, to architects, to graphic designers who are working at breweries or at Ben & Jerry's or at any of the larger or smaller companies. It's also all of the artists and filmmakers who are supporting our small businesses across the state. We are increasingly we've always been, I think, but increasingly in a really, an age where visual media is really important for small businesses in ways that it really wasn't before. But now every small business has to have an Instagram account and make little videos and things that just wasn't on the radar maybe even 5 years ago. So our artists are part of all of that together. We also really saw during COVID the importance of artists to our local economies and to our communities. And it feels like the distant past now, but we do want to mention that the Arts Council distributed $9 million of ARPA funds through the Creative
Yes.
Futures program.
Very successfully, actually. It was one of the
Yeah.
best distribution.
Thanks to Amy Cunningham right here, who really led that whole project. And that we still are getting, actually, if you want to put you on the spot for a second, talk about some of the just nice things organizations have been saying. We're closed out, that program is of course closing out, so we're getting some final reports back.
So that was obviously the largest grant funding that we've ever had the opportunity to distribute. And it was the first time that we were able to distribute funds broadly it included funds to creative businesses in addition to artists and arts organizations who've been kind of our key folks that we've granted to. So 233 grants to businesses, large and small, artists who are sole proprietors, to some of the largest creative businesses you can think of around the state. And we just, St. Glass.
Thank glass,
Oh, neat.
but that's just one part of it.
Good, you see, right,
Love it.
right here,
Love that.
in our own community
can-
and artists.
I mean, that window is great.
That would be great in that one, but I also, this sketch, this is
Oh, neat.
religious.
Beautiful. It's one of the things I love
And
about
then I
Vermont.
had a lady that called me and said, could you design a tattoo? And she gave me what she did. So I designed her tattoo.
Oh, wow.
Tattoo artists are part of the creative economy.
It's part of the creative economy.
Yes, I didn't do it, but
But you designed it.
then I have a granddaughter that wanted me to draw some pictures. So
This is great. And here we are.
Here we are.
Right, and
all the
Artists are
Disney
everywhere.
characters that you could possibly get, I had to do.
And I will say that's one of my favorite things about our organization is that we made grants last year to all 14 counties of the state. Every corner of the state was receiving funding, and even the tiniest of towns in Vermont have incredible artists,
Yeah.
incredibly creative people. For some people, it is their full-time profession and the way they're making their income. For some people, it's what feeds their soul and gets their outlet in that way too. And we were able to support a lot of those through this Creative Futures Grant program.
Yeah, so we saw obviously arts organizations anchor parts of our communities who were among the first to close and the last to reopen during the pandemic. We're now getting the final reports from that funding, and it's just like we're overwhelmed with stories of like this is exactly what was intended with this money. This was an absolute lifeline that kept businesses afloat during these, when musicians who have gigs, theaters who had to close, they had no income revenue. And so it's just been really heartening to hear from folks who have really rebounded in the last year, report back and say what a difference that funding made. So thank you for that investment. That was historic.
And I think we're the highest in the nation per capita creative economy individuals, aren't we?
So we are the highest per capita of professional writers in the country.
Only it's
Mhm.
right.
We rank pretty high in all the other creative disciplines too, but writers, we really have a lot of too.
Sorry to derail you.
No, that's great. We love talking about it. Just for thinking about this committee and your work, it's also worth mentioning that we do a lot of partnerships with municipalities as well, both through our direct grant programs. And then we also operate 2 grant programs on behalf of the state. One of them is called the Art and State Buildings Program. So that is, we bring in artists to create new works of art in state buildings that are having construction projects happening. And that's done in consultation with the community, with the staff who are working in that building, and with the artists to develop that piece of public art. We also run the Cultural Facilities Program, which is very important because it's one of few, if not the only program in the state public-private that is funding facilities and infrastructure support for creative organizations. And that often will be a municipal owned building that is also a performance center or hosts live programming in some way.
Public library, so,
Mhm.
sorry.
Yeah, no, that's we're talking
The
about.
cultural organization you're talking about.
Yeah.
It's been great.
Yeah,
And then you invite us all, Larry, we get invited to the presentations, to the awards ceremony in the Cedar Creek room, where our constituents get this money. They get paper checks.
The big check.
yeah, we just do it for the big time. So that's a quick overview of the many things that we do, but for this afternoon specifically, Senator Clarkson asked us, and we're so grateful for that idea, to bring in some artists to highlight, to fill up these walls. Nobody at the Arts Council can handle a blank wall. But also it's a great, I think, opportunity to highlight both the artists who are creating amazing things that can, you can be inspired by or learn from or think about, or just gaze out in the distance when you need a break from the hard work that you're doing at the table. But also the opportunity for the artist to sell that work and see how that creative economy piece really works. That for many of these artists, this is their full-time job and they are part of Vermont's overall economy, and this being able to sell their work is really important to them. So we are figuring out the best way to do that, but what we think that will look like is bringing in maybe 1 or 2 artists at a time that will be able to showcase on the walls of your committee rooms, and then have just a little label of listing maybe the price or a way to directly pay the artist for that work, so that you can not only look at it on the committee walls, but maybe look at it in your home or give it as a gift as well. And we think the Arts Council really tries to do creativity in the broadest sense, and what that means for the person who's creating beautiful pieces of stained glass, what that means for the student who's getting the opportunity to learn through the arts in school, and what that means for the professional who is a credentialed, professional, trained artist and who's both selling their work but also working with the rest of our economic picture here too. So I think we're still thinking about who that could be. We have some asks out already to some folks with ideas.
We're looking at 2 committee rooms to start this, and it may be more, because once David Sheets gets excited about this, he's already so excited. But we're going to start with our committee room, thanks to Brian's willingness and the Senate Economic Development. And maybe we could be added to the art crawl or the art walk, or
Oh, that'd be fun.
And
The Fridays.
This
Fridays, yeah.
Downtown.
So I'm curious how you work with our state curator. How does this work? If you put something up and he says no, how does that work?
Well, I was just talking to him in the cafeteria and he's all in. And I think we were just kind of mapping this out, because this is the first time we would be doing this, that once we've identified the artist, we would work closely with him on the labeling and the hanging.
And clear with, you'd have to like the art before we put it up.
That's the first step.
Well, that may not be your biggest challenge.
The curator and the chair of the committee.
Yeah, no, I'm pretty easy. As long as David's for it,
Yeah.
it's probably gonna happen. So.
And frankly, David's got so many deep relationships with individual artists himself through all of his years as a curator, that I was just picking his brain for some other ideas of folks.
But he doesn't have the time to take this on additionally, which is what we found, which is one of the reasons I had the idea of, well, let's partner with our best partners on Arts Council.
The other part of this that we're looking at is artists who have received grant support from the Arts Council. So we can also highlight that story. And what we find a lot is, our grants at the Arts Council are not, they are very
Modest.
of a lot of consequence, but they are not giant, I would say. We're always looking to increase the amount available. But for a lot of artists, we hear that even a modest grant that you get from the Arts Council is just kind of the push that you need to be able to take it to the next step. And some of these artists may be able to tell that story too, of really the impact that this state and federal funding had in their business development and what they've been able to do in the state too.
Senator Bielanski.
Yeah, so I'm wondering, so previously, I think in the last biennium, we sort of reached out to members of our community about art. If we'd have already done that and now we're pivoting, should we just connect folks?
Let us know who
Yeah.
they are. That'd be great.
That's because we'd like to do that.
And once we choose art for this session, because we'll have new art next session, but we're hoping that artists will keep their work here through June, so we're going to a church. But that they might come in briefly and just meet us and that would be good too, just brief.
And that was a great, committee last year invited us into and the artists, and that was a really fun day. We really
It was
enjoyed being part of
fabulous.
that. So thank you for doing that. And I know it meant a lot to the artists too, to have,
Yeah.
we all try to demystify state government and what it means and what federal and state support means. But for many of us who are here, if not every day, a lot of the time, it's just the building you walk into. But for people who are not here every day, it really means a lot to have your work hanging in the State House.
And for a lot of us, it's fun to see our state tax dollars at work in a different way.
Exactly.
Bridges, roads, culverts, and art.
Senator White.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks again for coming in. I had not realized you were on the agenda today, so this was like a little bonus.
It was a. Instantly
Okay.
added.
Because I saw you guys and I was like, wait a minute, when did they? Okay, didn't know you guys were doing an executive order. So I was like, interesting. So I was really appreciative when you did the art here, especially because the artist of the painting on the right was also the subject of the painting on the left. And I had never fully comprehended how it must be to sit for a portrait like that. That's not something that commonly happens. So it was so beautiful. Their relationship,
It was lovely.
it was probably the most emotionally not sad thing that I've heard in the State House. It was a positive, uplifting, yes, thank you. If we have art that's in our community, it sounds like from your comment that we should start to redirect towards you guys. But my issue is I have some beautiful art, but I can't afford to get it framed. We've got some beautiful blow up prints and it's like $800 to get one of these things framed. So I personally have some art that I would love to have here in the State House that features White River Junction and all sorts of things like that. But I don't have the financial ability to frame it. So I don't know if there's.
We need to have them framed too.
Yeah, so I don't know if maybe offline we can talk about that, but there's
But
some
we
beautiful
develop a
prints.
pipeline, I think, for artists, and we can funnel ideas into one of our constituents is one we're considering. Who was a fabulous photographer and did a whole show on women farmers. And
Oh, yeah.
Juan Carlos. And so we're thinking of him being one of the first ones because all his work is framed and ready to go.
Oh, cool. I mean, that seems like the big issue for me is I would love to display my great uncle's photographs that
It
we
was
had
here.
one right behind Larry Land.
Right.
Yeah.
It was really great.
But it's just so expensive. And
Yeah.
I'm not.
expensive. Well, and I think sorry, go ahead.
Oh,
We want to, for this session, we want to do this as quickly as possible. And so that's why we were trying to think of the folks, the things that are ready to go.
Okay, I was gonna ask that
Ready to
whether
go.
whoever the artist turns out to be, they're not gonna create something.
No, we're not.
It's something that's already
Work.
created and they'll just.
These are
bring it.
things ready to go, framed, ready to go.
Ready to sell.
Ready to sell.
Yeah, that's I'm gonna say that's the framing that was offered was around showcasing art that is for sale to also tell that story. So that's art. I mean, you can focus when you're curating anything, you can focus on any one area. That if that is where you want us to go, that's kind of what's going to guide our choices, both the timeline, how quick can we do it, and things that the artist does want to sell, that we can talk about that side of the story as well.
And this is just a beginning. So we'll iron out the kinks, but let's get a pipeline going. And, we could, if we have artists ready to go, we can change it during town meeting week. I mean, there are all sorts of, but there needs to be time to do that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And what would we do here? Leave
That's about
those
to
there?
go. Those
Oh.
are, David's about to take those down.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Are those part of the state
No.
collection or they're okay? I
They're
didn't-
private.
Gotcha.
And we're not gonna run afoul of any rule if we're hanging stuff up to be sold, right?
No, we've done it before. Tim
Okay.
Ash, when he was chair
just
of
wanted to-
Senate. When Tim was chair of Senate Finance, he had a gallery, you may remember, and he had changed it up maybe 2 times during a session, and he had everything for sale. He'd have a opening reception.
And just what we're proposing is that the Arts Council would not be facilitating the sale. We would have artists who want to sell directly, so that they would be managing
Figure it
that.
out. Yeah,
So,
yeah, we can figure out.
Sure.
just for any.
Well, make it easy
I don't
and
sell my stuff. I donate it to churches and stuff and they can raffle it off. and
Oh,
make
that's what I
money
think, yeah.
or whatever, food banks or whatever. So.
Any other questions, committee? Well, thank you for being able to
Oh, happy to, anytime.
be
Always happy to
flexible in
talk
terms
about
of
art.
coming in, because as Senator White mentioned, when I got up this morning, I had no idea you were coming.
Oh, me either.
And that's fine.
What
That's
was
fine.
your idea?
No, I'll give credit where it's due. Senator Clarkson came and said, hey, how
We're
about
always
we do
happy to
this?
talk about things.
She's a real advocate for the arts. I don't know if you know that. Like,
And
she's
we
really
appreciate
into
it. So, and Senator Mahowski, if you want, I'll reach out to you to get that, contact and who that is, because I want to do it.
A few people actually, and I haven't had time to follow up.
Oh, perfect. So we can.
Being able to get it all.
Yeah,
We have room
yeah.
for three
We get
or
a
four.
bunch of options. Yeah.
Windsor County.
And I think
Plenty
the
of real
color
estate.
of the wall, I mean,
Yeah.
the color of the walls, I think that's one of the things that I think works so nicely about those two, is actually the kind of sagey green color of the walls and the gold
Yeah.
framing, and it just
My
works really
favorite
well.
color is
Lovely.
beige.
Yeah. It's wonderful.
My bedroom is beige.
Okay,
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Coming in.
Great to see you all. Happy mixed session.
thank you.
Thank you, yes. I don't know if that's how you say it, but huzzah, mixed session.
So I'll propose that we take a 15-minute break.
Love it.
Our next witness is doing it, 3 witnesses. They're gonna talk about dispatching. And then 3:45 will the big room. The House will. And at some point when we come back, well, today's Wednesday, we can do it tomorrow. We can go over, Senator Bielski and I and Jillian and Tucker went over the agenda for next week. And we do have, well, it's beginning to fill in.
Good.
Depending on some decisions that our
Senator
Supreme Court justices are hopefully going to make quickly and that sort of thing. Yeah,
Just to remind you that at 3 o'clock, I have an
Yeah.
appointment with the Lieutenant Governor.
understood.
So